Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Right.
Ready for this?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But the other news is we've been drawn against our teams have been drawn against each other in the quarterfinals of the League Cup.
And it's the cup we both need. We both need something, don't we?
I mean, Spurs need a cup. You guys don't need a cup. Ten Hag won a cup.
Okay.
Oh no, he's not there anymore.
Thank fuck.
Today.
Right, so this has been a long time.
It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about getting Helen on for ages.
Helen Rhodes, ECD from BBH. We've asked and asked and asked. She's busy, but she's finally relented. I think we saw the Tesco stuff and I said to her or to Alex, you have to come on. If you don't come on, we're not going to talk about it, or something slightly pathetic. And then one of them said, yeah. So great. Can't wait.
Exciting.
Yeah, she's got so much good stuff. It's going to be a challenge to get it all in. So
let's not dilly-dally.
Yeah, stop talking.
Yeah, dilly-dally. Dilly-dally.
Dilly-dally. That Budweiser campaign. Or dilly-dally. No. Okay, go get it.
Go.
Helen Rhodes, Executive Creative Director at BBH. Welcome to Behind the Billboard.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming out. So we know you're super busy and we really appreciate you coming in, but we've worked out you are the closest ever distance from the studio, so because BBH is
so if there's an emergency you could go and come back within 10 minutes. You'll be back with us.
Alex Grieve is on speed dial. We can get him. So we're going to talk about your brilliant billboards in a moment, but we always do this thing at the beginning called Helen Facts.
Well, it's normally someone facts. It's not always Helen.
It's not always Helen.
We don't do Helen facts on every podcast.
But then I look at Dan and
facts.
Some facts. Yeah, the world is round, and we sing it, don't we, Dan? Helen Facts. Yeah, right. So anyway, we're going to start. So this is my favourite fact ever, and I'm going to ask: is your dad definitely called Billboard?
Yes, I didn't know you knew that. I was gonna talk about that, and I thought it was going to be a pod exclusive.
Billboards.
Well, so I'm married. My married name is Rhodes.
Right.
My maiden name
is Boards.
Is Board. My dad is called Bill.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
So it's destined. I was destined.
So whenever
for this,
I speak to Janie Brooke
career in
Taylor,
advertising,
she goes. So I didn't know this. I'm going, it's Helen Rhodes, And when we met at BBC, it's like, oh yeah, I know Helen and all that, and Janie would go, what, Bordsy? Oh, Bordsy. And I was like, no, it's Helen Rhodes. Because her maiden name's Boards. And so it kind of went in a bit. And then I think we had a chat one day or something, or someone, Dad's called Billboard. And it was like,
we've got to get him on.
So that's
behind the billboard.
Oh, I could have, he's retired.
Should have had him in.
So
what was his career?
He sold timber.
I was going to say, was he a carpenter as well? That's amazing. Oh, God.
We have to try and get him on or get a picture somehow.
Yeah, let's get it on the feed.
So we won't...
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've got lots of pictures.
Yeah. Okay, so, actually, we're going to talk about some sort of things about you anyway. So you've created award-winning work at some of the greatest agencies in the world, Whedon and Kennedy, BBC Creative, BBH, just to name but three. And they've all benefited from your amazing skills as an art director, creative director, and now executive creative director. I've got two more facts. Helen helped set up the Barn, which is also known, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of like the Watford College copywriting course that lives within BBH and was tutor Tony Cullingham's final home, sadly, before he passed away. His legacy lives on with the Barn, so it's continued to flourish at BBH with Nick Gill. Is that right? Yeah, good. So that's a lovely thing. We probably might talk about a bit more about Tony and Watford. And then I read somewhere, Helen's ambition is always to make the most interesting advertising possible. So your latest campaigns certainly have lived up to that mantra. Mum's scoffing burgers straight after childbirth for Burger King. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And more recently, removing Tesco's logo from posters, substituting the letters with iconic food items. So those are two absolutely brilliant campaigns we're going to talk about in a minute.
And brave as well, I think it's fair to say, right?
Really brave. Just lovely. So that's the introduction. I hope that lived up.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you. I loved it.
It always feels like a bit of a this is your life moment when we do the facts for someone, doesn't it?
But
or have died.
Yeah, close. So what's going on with you at the moment? What's going on at BBH? Anything exciting? I see you just retained Ribena, which is very good.
Yeah, which is a brilliant brand. brand, British iconic brand. So that's great. Yeah, it's busy. There's lots happening. Tesco Christmas ad launched today.
I haven't had time to look at it. Have you seen it?
Haven't seen it, but we'll definitely put a link to it on the on this feed as soon as it's out as well.
Yeah.
Are you excited? Is it because last year's was really good? Didn't you win Christmas last year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think so, but yeah, no, it's a sort of continuation, bit of a different tone. Last year was a bit more surreal. I mean, there's still quite a bit of a surreal nature to it, but it's a bit more of a tearjerker this year.
I like. I watched them all the other day. Well, the late, what was out there. I quite
talk about the Waitrose one.
Yeah, so I quite like it.
I like the Waitrose
because I really like Tom from Succession.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that's it.
I was in his bar the other day.
No, he's got a bar
in New York.
Oh, I thought you meant around here.
Oh no, not around here.
What's it called? Tom's Bar.
Don't remember.
I liked it. I can't because it left me hanging a bit at the end, going maybe that's
Part
it.
two.
Yeah, it felt different structure, like how they came at it.
Yeah, and then I was a bit of a sucker for I quite like Etsy stuff. I like what Orchard do.
Yeah,
and so they called him Waldo.
That's what they call him in America.
That's an Americanism.
Where's Wally? Yeah. But it's a clever idea, wasn't it, about the compass and all that.
I like what they did last year at Etsy as well.
Yeah, it's good.
The Mission Impossible.
Yeah, the singing. But that was very that some people loved it, some people hated it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Right. So
we always start
about TV ads.
We always start with that's why we always bring it back to billboard straight away. We always start with a billboard at the end of my street, and obviously we use this to find out what's going on in real life, what you've seen recently, and also to talk about the industry. So hopefully you've got a banger for us.
So this is the nearest billboard was at the train station, Bromley South, and it is an ad for Sudafed to unblock your nose. And they've tried to be location specific, so I guess points for that. It's talking. They know people at the train station, so the headline says "On the Move," and it's a picture of a woman, and then they've got the kind of two blue stripes either side of her nose to
signifying that she can breathe.
That she can breathe.
The international.
And then the copy says Sudafed gets to work. So again, trying to talk to people. You're on your way to work. So does this product. Gets to work in 2 minutes and lasts up to 10 hours. And then it says Sudafed to breathe free. And there's a huge pack shot, and as well as the pack shot, they've taken the bottle out of the box, and there's like a double pack shot, and it's all very blue. So I mean, it's not the worst ad in the world.
But it is. We talked about pharmaceutical ads the other day, and it's all. I think there's a formula to them.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that comes from the holding companies who force that through, or if it's just this is medicine, so let's just keep it.
Well, do you know what? It's funny, when you were describing it, we put something on the Instagram the other day for Vicks, which is a really good ad, which was it's an overhead shot of a crowded train station, but then the pathway is made clear by as if Vicks have been sprayed, so Vicks at the bottom. It's really good. It's really graphic. It's basically doing exactly what that is doing, but as a really good billboard. I mean, that's more like just sort of descriptor, isn't it? I mean, like you said,
this is the time of year they start putting that stuff out, right? It's cold and flu season. Here it comes. This is the keep you working, keep you.
Yeah, it kind of does a job. It's not terrible. Bad. There's not like loads and loads of copy on there. It's but I think it's just that stuff out there that's just noise. They haven't. There's no idea. It's just just kind of stuff.
It's in the 95%, not the 5%.
Yeah, and not the stuff that we would want to put out there. I think we would always try and do something that has got an idea and is beautifully crafted, so at least visually it's something that's nice to look at. And I think I've always tried to do stuff that people like, want to engage with, and or has got a bit of an idea, and maybe you have to like make the connection, and so there's like a reward there, whereas this is just sort of says it.
Yeah, it's done. You don't need to do anything, do you?
As I said, we always use this segment to talk about the state of the industry, and I think that that's quite an appropriate thing for us to all think about. Well, great agencies out there doing great work, that sits in the 5%, right? There's the doing great work for great clients, Tesco stuff, the Burger King stuff is a classic example of it, like elevating what they're doing already and making it better. Whereas the 95%, that because of the growth of out of home, more formats, screens, shapes, sizes, formats, because of the growth of the city, so there's more bus stops and there's more there's more street furniture out there for them to utilize for media. There is always going to be that 95% of stuff that could just get a couple of percentage points better. And I think that's where lots of the smaller agencies can start thinking about what can we do to just elevate what's in the 95% right now, and how can we help change a brand's image using outdoor advertising. And I think there's definitely a role there for agencies to think about. Yeah,
because we're always obviously on the look for the good stuff, but if you see it when it gets amplified through social media, or you sometimes see it on the street, which is lovely. You go, like I saw that Vicks one I'm always looking on the underground for interesting stuff. But have you seen stuff lately you like? Have you been judging anything, or has there anything that stood out for you this year, or stuff to look out for from BBH maybe? We've got quite a lot that we looked out for so far.
Yeah. I mean, we've definitely had a good run of out of home recently. I think just in general, the industry, like the out of home is a good standard, and we were talking a bit before, but I think agencies like Uncommon especially, they definitely do a lot of like great outdoor, obviously the British Airways and the B&Q stuff that they did, and I think other agencies have sort of followed suit as well, and the more that sort of agencies that up their gaming out of home, I think that's good for everyone. I think McDonald's, they're always like consistently do great stuff.
It's lovely when I think it's a real resurgence at the moment. We talked about McDonald's, Hiscox, BA. It's actually a lot of Uncommon stuff, but then it's not because you're just here, but like Burger King, Tesco, the fashion brand F&F. When you see good, you're just looking for another one and another one, and then we get stuff sent in, and you start to think, there was a time, I think it was after COVID, obviously it'd be a tough time, where you started thinking, shit, is that kind of it? But it feels like it's come right back. I don't know. What do you think?
I think COVID was interesting. Obviously, people weren't outside, so they weren't booking outdoor spaces. But then, as people started to go out, you were. And then I think that maybe special builds got more popular because it needed to have a life further than
beyond
just,
the billboard.
So stuff that would go viral and people get talked about, and it comes out on some of the examples of things like Dracula and Perfect Planet. And I think there's just a real opportunity there as well, to have that real estate on the street that people can see it and, hopefully be entertained by it and, sort of improve their day just a tiny bit. But then also it has a life beyond that online and people, it gets talked about and shared.
It's really interesting, that life beyond thing it's huge now, isn't it? That for all advertising, and if you can get it shared, take a photo. Like we asked all of our alumni, what makes a great poster, and it was fascinating actually what everyone said. It formed part of our talk, but one of them was Nils said, people now, they want to own things which are liked by everyone. So if you can get someone to stop, take a photo, and then give it to others, that is, I hate to say it,
it's currency, right?
That is the thing, isn't it?
So for an audience, if you can get someone to be your ambassador, if you can, as a brand, if you get someone to be your ambassador by taking a photo of your ad and sharing it across their channels, all of a sudden they become a mouthpiece. And if they're the first to do that, they go,
I think it's like we are sort of influenced by our peers, aren't we? And if our friends like stuff, we like stuff. And, if I remember when I worked at the BBC, that was like you'd want people to talk about the show and then they'd tell their friends about it and then they'd watch the show. So I think it's like that with ads, right? If you do something and it's about knowing your audience and talking to your audience. And if you can really engage with that community and they become big advocates, then it's going to have a halo effect and more people are going to be interested.
I always found the most exciting thing was, you make the work and you promote it with the agency PR and the trade PR and all that. And if you're asking people to give you a little nudge and that, but when it starts to go beyond that, that's when it's exciting. And I remember once Sorry, just a bit of indulgence here, but I did something for MTV, and it was drunks in the back of a cab, and I did all that kind of sent it out, and then my mate who lived in America going, "Oh, Toddy, you should see this. This is brilliant." And it was our ad that had obviously gone all the way around, and I went, "Oh, I did that," and he's like, "Did you?" I was like, "Yeah." And it was that, but that's the most.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That like on the Burger King stuff, particularly, which we'll come to. Right, we should move on to your
first ever billboard. Do you remember it?
Yes,
like it was yesterday.
So we have to quickly caveat on episode. Oh God, I wrote this in on the way in. Matt Lever came in. So Matt Lever was your partner.
Yeah. So me
episode
and Matt.
Number 67. So when Matt, listeners, 67. If you're on to Matt Lever, he talked about these two, which is you could briefly talk to us, and then we've got some key whiskers or something we could talk about.
Yeah. So I know we've got a lot to get through, so I will. And obviously, go and listen to Matt's episode to get more detail, maybe, and hear his lovely West Country accent.
Yes.
So me and Matt, we met at Watford. We both went to Watford and teamed up. We were like the first team to team up, and I think the only team to stay together. Like everyone else split up and teamed up.
Good. Good to know.
And yeah, we were a team for like 14 years, which was amazing.
14 long years. No, I'm joking.
But yeah, and I think that team partnership is like so important. And I think with Matt and I, it was just like we were just really good friends. I think the first couple of briefs we worked together on Watford, like we were pretty awful, but we just like
had a laugh.
Yeah, we just had a laugh and liked each other's company, and and I think that sort of chemistry is like so important.
Yeah. If you're going to spend a lot of time with someone, you got to get on.
Yeah. And this, so we left, so we did Watford, we got a book together, obviously thought we had a great book, and then left Watford and realised we didn't when you start going around to all the teams in all the agencies, and did various placements for a year and a half. I went to AMV and DDB, and one of the placements was CDD, so Campbell Doyle Dye, which was Walter Campbell, Sean Doyle and Dave Dye. So obviously Walter, who had done Guinness Surfer and all those amazing ads like Dunlop and Volvo, and was just, sort of a creative visionary.
Yeah.
And then Sean, who is one of the best copywriters, and Dave, who's one of the best art directors. So I remember...
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was like a 2-week placement that turned into a 10-month placement, and it was just such an amazing education in advertising. Like we were the only creative team apart from those three. So we were just like little sponges, just trying to like soak up everything. I mean, I remember they had this huge wall of like D&AD annuals and one shows, and we'd sort of seen a lot of D&AD annuals and stuff at Watford, but not the one show. And I think they had quite a sort of an American tone of voice to some of their writing and stuff, which we learned a lot of, which was, just amazing to be around.
And being the only team there, were you briefed on everything? Yeah,
we worked on everything. I mean, they had Mercedes, that was like their big account, but they didn't have many other accounts, but they won like a few other things, but just pitching all the time. And I think like their standards were so high, like everything they pitched with could have gone in a D&AD annual.
Yeah.
Like they won Adnams, and that was like what they'd sort of pitched with, and that beautiful, like, print
love that stuff.
Work.
It gets mentioned a lot, doesn't it?
And I think that was probably why they didn't win a lot of pitches, because they would just go with like their standards were so high, and it was like, this is what you should do, and the work looked amazing. And maybe sometimes clients are looking for lots of options and
being on the journey with them rather than
and to see are you malleable, and whereas they were like this is what you should be doing, and they had such high standards and like creative conviction and stuff that you should have. But I don't know, I think sometimes clients are looking for different things.
But it's better to start there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then sort of like, start your journey into advertising rather than starting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, isn't it? So what a brilliant start.
Yeah. And then, so this was a campaign for Macallan whiskey, really expensive whiskey that, is sort of takes however long to, what does whiskey do? Does it?
Distills and then.
Distills, that's it. Doesn't ferment. No, that's something else.
Does it mature? No.
Anyway.
It ages.
Shall I read the headline? It's a beautiful shot of a Macallan bottle with the sort of outline, I kind of just see the outline of the bottle. And it says, "A Christmas gift from the MD. Aren't you glad you hired him?" Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all about just, loads of lines. There was loads of lines. Sean Doyle had written some amazing lines. Dave had art directed it. I think Giles Ravel was a photographer. Lots of beautiful shots of different angles of the bottle. And then we were tasked with, writing some lines as well.
Right.
And I think we wrote like hundreds, and there was like one that Dave liked. And I think he liked it so much he didn't think that we had written it. You do this.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. But just amazing just to get one through him.
Right.
It was like,
it's like an Economist, isn't it?
Career highlight.
Yeah. And then next to it is something very different. It's a River of Blood.
Yes, so that was after CDD, unfortunately we didn't get hired because, they hadn't won enough pitches, but we'd had this amazing schooling working into, the three founders. So then we went on placement at TBWA. I think by then we knew what we were doing and luckily got hired quite soon. I mean, we sat outside Paul Silburn's office and just tried to work into him as much as possible. And I think at one point we must have done something right. And he told Trevor Beattie, who was the ECD and creative chairman at the time, to hire us.
Great.
And they had PlayStation as a client. And this was great because like for every, game, you'd do a billboard. And this was one for The Getaway, which is this like very violent gangland game set in London. So it's a shot of London with the Thames running through it, but instead of water, it's a river of blood. And I remember we spent ages like retouching, trying to get the colour and the consistency of that blood like just right.
Yeah.
Fraser Jellyman was the CD, and he was also the head of art at TBWA.
It's great. You
was
can run that today.
A real stickler for like the details. And
I love it. It's sort of like it's like something for a film, isn't it? It's like some, like a Netflix series.
That was kind of the PlayStation way then. Everything was quite cinematic. All the TV ads were cinematic as well, weren't they? They were.
Yeah. It's a lovely start. And then obviously Matt had covered that a bit as well. You've covered that in great detail. Thanks. And then but there's something from Whiskers as well.
Yeah. So then this was another, your first billboards, and I've put 3 in, but
got loads of time. Don't worry, Helen.
This is something for Whiskers. So I think the brief must have been something like very just tastes really good.
Get on with it.
Yeah. And so these were a couple of ads. One showed the Whiskers bag on top of a cupboards, and then it's really high up, and then there's just scratches on the cupboard, the cat trying to get to it. And then there was another shot that was the back of a car, and you could see all the shopping and the Whiskers bags poking out the shopping. Right. And then there's the cat's muddy footprints on the back of the white car, trying to get at the pack.
Yeah.
So I think the example, like with all 3 of these examples, they're just very simple visual ads. See, the McCallum one is a headline. The other 2 are very visual. I think there's no end line on any of them. I mean, I like the Whiskers one. You're kind of incorporating the pack shot into the story. This was something Matt and I did. Cole Broadhurst was a art director and creative at TBWA at the same time as us. He was more senior than us, helped us art direct it. We shot it with David Stewart, who was
great.
One of the best photographers at the time, and just a lovely man. And we were so young, so green, and he spent so much time with us. And
I love these. They remind me a bit of those Spider-Man ones with just a tin of Spider-Man hoops, weren't they, or something? It's just a shot. There's no end line. It's brilliant. It's sort of, it makes you look at it more, particularly one on the left. And that is what happens in our house, by the way. I've literally got those marks.
Yeah.
So it's... But
TBWA was an amazing, also like very different from CDD, where we'd gone from being the only 2 creatives, in the department with the 3 founders, to then being,
thrust into a massive agency. And
like
into
Trevor Beattie, who, done amazing stuff. Paul Silburn, who was the deputy ECD, who, prior to coming to TWA, he'd done all the John West Bear, and then doing the John Smith's, Habit stuff with Peter Kay. There was also Tony McTeer, who was doing PlayStation Mountain at the time, Neil Dawson and Clive Pickering. Chris and John, who were a couple of years above us. And
I remember I was at St Archie's at the time and really wanted to work at, we were doing all right actually. It was with Droga. It was a good time, but we really wanted to get into TBWA. So we would literally go and drink all the time in the Carpenter's Arms or in that bar you had downstairs.
Free bar.
In the hope just bump into Trev or Silburn, and we every time we went in, it's like, maybe next week, and it was like a golden period of that agency. I mean, like those names you've rattled off.
Ben Priest and Brian Campbell.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah,
and then
so many amazing people to learn from.
And then you left, and it went to rubbish, didn't it?
Yeah. It might be when Trev left. I don't know. It was either me and Matt or Trev. I don't know.
One of those. Right. So we're going to now jump in. So we are roughly following your timeline, but we're going to try and not spend too much time going too deep, because there's so much good work, particularly recently at BBH, which but we want to talk about another campaign briefly you did with Matt at MCBD for the NHS, an anti-smoking campaign, where it must have been a really early form of hyper-localised billboards in a way, because you got. Well, tell us about it. It's kids talking to their parents, but through the billboard on the way to work.
So it's for the NHS anti-smoking campaign. And I think at the time, like, most of the ads were kind of trying to shock and tell people, not to smoke because it's going to rot their lungs or, clog up their arteries.
It was images of black lungs. And
remember that when it was like there was an ad of like fat oozing out of a cigarette, which was really striking and arresting, but... Andy Nairn, who was the CSO at MCB, he had a really interesting insight that was, and I think you could see that, like, even though these visuals were really horrible to look at and like, oh God, I'm literally rotting my lungs, people didn't really care, or they didn't think it would happen to them, but they did care about their kids. And there was this statistic that 96% of kids with a parent who smoked wished they would give up and, would like hide their parents' cigarettes to try and stop them smoking and things like that. So I think like coming into that angle was much more powerful and effective. So this was literally like real kids whose parents smoked, and talking. So it's like literally one person talking to another person. So like hyper targeted and, location specific. So the billboards would be on a bus stop where the mum gets a bus to work. So it'd be like, hi mum, I know you get this bus to work. I wanted to tell you, please stop smoking and I don't want you to die. Or it'd be outside the shop where the mum does the weekly shop. So it's like, mum, I know you shop here. And then there was also other stuff like in print. So in Heat magazine, I know you read Heat, and then there was a lot of TV ads that would run in the ad break of the parents' favorite shows. So hi Dad, I know you watch Coronation Street.
It's really powerful. It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like it just stopped showing all that stuff, don't they say? Because like people, like they, I actually smoke now and again, and I look at a pack of fags. I never even worry about the pictures of dead people. You
just get sort of blind to it.
Carry on. Whereas that, I remember when my girls, it definitely would. It stops you more. It's much more. It's emotion. It's emotive, isn't it? Rather than
and I think it was just very stripped back and tried to be as real as we could. We shot them in their homes, and we were sort of in a van outside crying because it's quite emotional. Jim Gilchrist, who's the director, was brilliant, and he worked with like child psychologists and psychotherapists, and to make sure asking the right questions. Obviously, there's duty of care to the kids as well. But it was we were really proud of, and like you say, just very targeted. And I think you've seen stuff since. At the time, there wasn't really anything else like that out there.
Yeah, it's great. Right, we're going to move on.
Just before we do, I was talking about cigarette advertising with my kids. I've got an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they're amazed that anyone smokes. So I think all of the government initiatives that have happened over the last 20 years since you had to stop smoking in pubs and inside have done a great job on the younger generations. I know vaping is in, but my kids are kind of anti-vaping as well. They're being taught at school it's really bad for you, and they can't fathom that it used to be okay to advertise cigarettes. So there were posters for cigarettes. There were, and it's just it's really interesting. It's generational. Yeah, incredible. Silk cut stuff. We talked about it on the show. Yeah. The Benson and Hedges work, the Marlborough stuff. There's some very, very famous advertising that you just that my kids' generation is never going to see, and they're never going to produce it.
Yeah, but you can't believe that, the King's Cross fire was started by
people smoking.
Yeah. So they were allowed to smoke in the tube.
Yeah,
imagine that.
Yeah, I remember flights, there'd be like a smoking area.
It's just
like,
crazy.
like,
What's
you
weird is
could keep the smoke in that area.
They still have ashtrays on airplanes.
That's
so
weird.
that just shows how old airplanes are.
I remember at BBH when they had the smoking room. Oh my God! So you go in there, and Pepiot smoked because he was the project manager who had all the briefs. So if you wanted a good brief, you'd have to sort of either smoke or get someone to sit next to you. It was really weird. So you'd go in, and then you come out, and the smell on your clothes was just disgusting. But it was a glass room, and you could. But it did always look quite fun. I have to admit. It was kind of like now though, agencies. You got to go out the front, and I did see one. When I went to Japan, there was a smoking room, and
in the airport.
Yeah, in the airport, and it literally was like a stand-up toilet,
a massive extractor fan above it,
and it just looked really, really sad actually. And there's a bloke in it. Anyway, right, got to move on. Let's talk. So we're going to go to America. Mm-hmm. So we do have to do a quick, because not many creatives go abroad from Britain. I think. A bit like our footballers are all a bit, stay here. So it's incredibly brave of you to have gone to the States, to Weed and Kennedy. What happened? How did you end up there? Because it's, I don't know. And then we'll talk about the RX bar work.
Yeah. I think Matt and I always talked about working in America. We always wanted to. We were like big fans of like a lot of work that was coming out there, especially like funny work. But we never actually did anything about it. And then we were at DOKW Low. We did a Christmas ad for Morrison's, which was all about the kind of truthful side of Christmas, that is a lot of work that goes into it for that one day. And it was kind of like a funny, surreal take on everything that goes into Christmas. And it did quite well. And it got spotted in America by Susan Hoffman and Mark Fitzloff, who were the ECDs of Wieden Kennedy Portland. Which was amazing, and they really liked it, and they said to their internal creative recruiter, Lauren Ranke, asked her to get in touch with us, and we thought someone was playing a prank on us.
Is this a test?
Yeah. But then we realised she was a real person, and they flew us out to Portland for a couple of days, and we met everyone, half people in the agency when we were horrifically jet lagged,
right?
And we must have not embarrassed ourselves too much. And they offered us a job,
right?
Which was just like amazing. A dream. We'd always admired Wieden Kennedy Portland's work. We'd never worked at any of the other Wieden Kennedy offices, but obviously all of them do amazing stuff. And after a few months of sorting out visas and stuff, we went out there, and
wow, what a jump! Yeah,
it was. I mean, like Matt had just he'd had to marry his girlfriend in order to go out. They'd just had a baby,
right?
My husband gave up his job to come out because the visa that we were on meant he couldn't work. But so it was a huge life move, but it was really exciting, and I don't regret a second of it. It was amazing.
How long were you there?
I was there for 6 years, and I think without getting sort of too cheesy or over the top, it was like a really transformative experience. I think I would definitely recommend to any creative or just anyone really to work abroad at some point. I think it really does broaden your horizons and make you think differently. Be exposed to different cultures.
That's what I was going to say. The American culture is very, very different.
And I think I wasn't ready for that.
Formats are similar, but not the communication is different, right?
I think I was so excited to sort of go out there. I didn't really think about it, and I think naivety is probably good, because probably if you do think about it, you think, you overthink it and maybe you don't do anything. But I like that cultural difference. So I thought, well, we all speak the same language. It'll be fine. It wasn't like we were going to, work in Asia or a country in Europe where there's that language barrier. But the culture references are also different. And especially when you work in an industry like advertising, you don't realise how much you rely on
popular culture.
On all of those things. So, But then I think that's good because it forces you to think differently, because, I was just, whenever people, I was in a meeting and they're mentioning celebrities and stuff, I was just always furiously Googling stuff. Like, But
then it's the other way around. Like when, say, you go in the department, there's a Brazilian creative team there, then they bring something different. That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, and Wieden Kennedy was a real hub for that as well. They had teams from, Australia and Sweden and France and, loads of different areas in America as well as other countries. And
cool.
it was great to be exposed to that. And I think just like it's their whole culture. I mean, that was also another thing, the culture of America, but then also the culture of Wieden+Kennedy got such a strong culture. It took a while to kind of navigate it, and it is a huge agency.
Right.
But I think that it is all about the work, and I think really it was, they've got a lot of sort of sayings, but their main one is like the work comes first, and it is so true. And I think that also just simplifies everything, because like everyone who's there is there, their whole, it's all about the work and making that as good as it can be. If you're in finance, it's about getting things approved so it doesn't impede the work. Or like account people, obviously the client relationship is really important, but it's all in service of the work.
Something you can salute and
it takes out all the politics of it. And Dan Wieden, and David Kennedy, they were still part of the agency, not involved in the day to day, but their presence was there, and that was just hugely inspiring. And I think they it's an agency that will never be sold. Like it was in Dan's will that it can never be sold, and that's like such a huge part of their ethos.
That's a strong cultural value for them, isn't it? That's a
So I know that you did. So we're going to talk about RX Bar. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
And you did that after Matt came back.
Yep. So he came back after a couple of years.
And you stayed.
Yeah, which was, a huge life moment and a big decision. But, we talked at length about it, and it was sort of right for him and his family to come back. But, I wanted
So then did you get teamed up with someone else, or did you go on your own and just partner up on projects? How did that work? I worked for a bit. I was like sort of worked with different people, which was really interesting. Because after 14 years of like working with one person, he's going for the flapjacks.
He's been watching them. I've been watching him looking down.
I'm actually having a flapjack everyone. Well, Helen tells us more. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I think what was amazing in that partnership with Matt is like you know each other so well, and there's a shorthand, and you can take on more work because you can work quicker because you know how each other operates, and you know your strengths and weaknesses. But I guess being put outside your comfort zone and working with different people is also good, and I think you learn different things about yourself and you take different things from them, and that was really interesting. So I did that for a while, but then I got teamed up with a guy called Jonathan Marshall, who was amazing. And sort of, had Matt, who was a guy from the West Country, and then I was teamed up with Jonathan Marshall, who is a funny guy from Lubbock, Texas. We got teamed up on KFC, which was an amazing account. And then I ended up working with him for sort of like the next 4 years, which was, a lot of fun.
I thought you were going to say from West Coast.
From West Country to West Coast.
But I suppose that's
that would have,
would have been nice.
Lubbock, Texas. Where's that? Where's Texas? Where's Lubbock in Texas? Is it kind of north, south, east, west?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
So you got. So I remember seeing this ages ago. Obviously, it's a campaign for RX Bar, and the end line is no BS.
Yeah,
which is no bullshit.
Well, it stands for no bad stuff and no bullshit. So
I didn't know bad stuff.
So RX Bar, it was started by like the founder in his like parents' basement, and it's just got really lots of like only a few ingredients, but lots of healthy stuff like egg whites, dates, nuts, dried fruit. And it started off like he took it around to like CrossFit, like to the CrossFit community, and I think gave a lot of it away for free, and then that got a real like support in the CrossFit community, and they became real advocates for that, and then it sort of grew from there and got more and more popular, and I think they ended up selling to Kellogg's for like $600 million or something like that. So
well done.
I think this campaign was like before they sold, but they were getting bigger and bigger. They were being sold in Whole Foods and stuff like that. But I think, what was really clever about the product is that they, rather than hiding the ingredients in tiny writing on the back, they displayed it proudly on the front because there were only a few ingredients, and it was, good stuff. And then the line is no BS, stands for no bad stuff in their food, but also no bullshit. And then that was what was kind of the inspiration for the campaign and the posters, and the creative director on it was Micah Walker. I don't know if you know Micah. He worked.
Oh, me, yeah. So MICAH. No, Miko.
MICAH. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Miko, yeah.
Yeah, so he worked at Fallon,
That's right.
London, and then worked in Australia, and then come out to, and it's since gone back to Australia and started an amazing agency, Bear Meets Eagle on Fire.
But this is a good example of what you're talking about, the American cultural references. So in the no BS thing, that's an Americanism, because they say, oh, that's BS, man, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so could you read these headlines out for us?
Yeah, so
they're the best headlines.
This is, I think, Micah had this idea, and then he brought in me and John, and then another team, Bertie and Kristen, to help write the lines.
Yeah.
So they were just like very honest, tell it like it is kind of headlines. So there's like a huge black billboard with the black pack shot of the RX bar. All the pack shots are different, very like brightly different colours. So the colour of the pack would dictate the colour of the poster.
Got you.
And then the lines were just like a really, really big poster. Or a blue one for the blue pack would be a big blue billboard. Or the green one with a green background would just say product shot.
Yeah.
Another one, the pink one for the pink product would say some words on a wall.
So it's great. And then another goes coconut, chocolate, and some other words. So you're basically, because Dan and I were we've had so many different types of guests, so many different campaigns and brands. So one of them was Oatly. Mm-hmm. We did a brilliant episode.
We had Michael Lee,
Yeah, from in lockdown. But we talked about tone of voice and the Oatly kind of...
The irreverency.
Yeah. But we were thinking, this must have been before that. So it must have been a kind of forerunner, that ironic, but like you said, Dan, very, very much American. You wouldn't get this in England. You might do now, but you wouldn't get this in England.
Yeah.
And is that something that came...
The comedy is there as well, right?
Funny,
there's
really
the fun stuff.
Yeah, and I think just a really great tone of voice. There's loads of them. I think because they're all up in amazing places in America. Everything just looks cooler in America as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but I think that they just get more and more silly as well. Like this is one on the subway. We've got like a big long brown poster. It says long brown poster. Then behind it is a long blue poster that says that, and then behind that there's like long pink poster, and then on the floor it says, if you go back,
on
the floor it says a poster on the floor.
And then there's one actually in Times Square that says barely noticeable RX bar poster in Times Square.
Yeah, so it's there obviously against all the other posters that it's competing.
Each placement unique as well. Then with those ones with the.
Yeah, and there was also a nice like fly poster that just kind of like had lots of other imagery.
So then tell us how you developed it, because there's another strand to it, is that right?
Yeah, there was a whole like big campaign. Like Bertie and Kristen did the TV, which was also basically like a billboard on TV. It was just like it sort of had filled the screen with the pack, and it said no BS, and then Ice-T kind of opens the door, like comes out of the pack and just says something like very matter of fact, and then closes it again.
Right.
Sweet. So they did that, and then we did this activation off of it, which was basically like all these sort of guerrilla posters and floor stencils that we put in New York that had a phone number that was 1877 that's BS, and that was all it said, just to kind of get New Yorkers to call it. And then there was a message on there that it was all about like just sort of ranting about things you thought were BS, and it just ran in New York because we thought that's the place where there's the most there's like 8 million irritated people.
Yeah.
And then we made animations of like the voicemails, and we wanted to do it as live and reactive as we could. So it's like something that ran over a week. So we kind of had a war room as the voicemails came in. We would pick the best ones. We had this amazing animation house called Awesome Inc. who would then like turn the animations around really quickly. Get the client to approve stuff, and then it would go out.
And then where was it go? Where were the animations going out?
Just on social.
On social, yeah.
Yeah. We obviously had to listen to quite a lot of rants that people just like shouting about Trump.
Well, not much has changed. Well, maybe I don't know.
Bring it back. There's an Instagram channel I follow for office in New York, and I got into it through some of my colleagues there, called NYC, and it's brilliant. It's effectively just people posting their stuff and ranting about life in New York.
Right.
And it's brilliant. It rings true for all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a Must be a really good client to do all that.
Yeah,
it's like,
it was really fun, and the animations just like really bring to life these people in kind of surreal and odd ways.
I love it. I love this. I mean, the billboards, just this sort of kind of stuff. You would definitely take a photograph of something that says a really, really big poster. And because I didn't know the bad stuff thing, I thought it was bullshit. But then for you to say no bad stuff, it's really clever, isn't it? Right, we're going to have Dan's done that little sign. Got to move on. So you come back to England. Just going to just brush over that.
Big decision to come back home?
Yeah, huge decision. Like, Wyden Kennedy is such a brilliant agency and was making some really interesting work. But I've been there sort of 6 years, and I was starting to think, like, what's next? And there's a bit I sort of talked to a few other agencies in America. I was maybe going to move to San Francisco, but I'd also had 3 kids, and I was like, am I really going to go and start again?
Just chuck that one in.
Yeah,
3 kids.
Had 3 kids.
All born in the US while you were in America. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I thought about going freelance. Quite a few people were leaving Wyden Kennedy to go freelance, and it's a very buoyant market. It's very lucrative, like, the day rate in the US.
It's high.
But then I was also like, do I want to go and work at other agencies? It's quite hard, I think, when you've worked at Wyden Kennedy Portland to then just go to another agency. And then I also got a call from a recruiter who's looking for a deputy ECD at BBC Creative, and I think that really appealed to me creatively. So rather than making loads of money going freelance, I took a pay cut and went to the BBC. But I think that's that thing.
A British institution.
You go for the creative opportunity, and that's something that Tony, taught me at Watford. Follow the work, don't follow the money.
Yeah.
And I think it was very different from Wyden Kennedy. I'd never worked in-house anywhere, but I think partly I didn't want to, kind of house style, but the BBC obviously is like so varied, and you've got, news and sport and events like the Olympics and, all of the programmes and comedy and dramas and, like you say, a British institution and something I'd grown up with and really believed in and I think wanted to.
But I remember when I was there, and you very kindly got me in, and I loved it. And I remember thinking, your brain very quickly goes, "Oh my God, all the programs are like clients." And and then you put them on a wall and you go, "That's the best client list I've ever seen."
Yeah.
Because even if they're something you're not mad about, you go, "Yeah, but that's really interesting. A show about, I don't know, well."
Yeah, and I think it's quite different, obviously, from working in an ad agency. I mean, it is obviously the internal ad agency, but it's also like part production company because they make all the trails and but you just have this amazing raft of culturally interesting thing which people are already interested in, and you've just got to do it in a way that makes it as appealing as possible.
So the 2 we're going to talk about, because you did loads there, but obviously we want to talk about the billboards and 2 amazing award-winning, I call them iconic stunts, really, for Dracula and The Perfect Planet. Tell us about these. Maybe start with Dracula and how that came about.
Yes, this was one of the first things I was involved with when I got to the BBC, and there was a new Dracula show that was kind of had a bit of a twist on Dracula. It was written by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, who did like League of Gentlemen. So it was sort of a fresh take on Dracula. So we wanted to do something that was equally as kind of new and interesting. And so this was, something the creatives came up with. So I'm going to name check them. So it was like James Fairfield, Matthew Rees, Ruben Dangor, Dominic Lee and Vicky Stevenson. And it's basically a poster. In the day, it just looks like there's like these random stakes stuck in the billboard. But at night, when the light goes on it, you see the The only reason I pointed at Dan, because I was saying, will you...
Well, the Talon Creative Solutions team, what was Creative Solutions now is the Grand Visual team, helped produce this.
Oh, amazing.
So they would have found
Dan, Helen, Dan.
I didn't work on it at all. It absolutely wasn't. I know the team that did that, and they would have handled all of the production of the assets and the testing of the light.
How were you... I'm always interested in this moment, when you're there as the ECD or the CD and you're having a creative review. Were you shown did someone draw it? Does someone say, I want to do something with shadows? How did you get it? Because I'm always, whenever I get stuff, I'm thinking, wow, that's brilliant. I don't have to do anything, but it's going to make me look great. Or you go, no, you should, you develop it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like you could see immediately it was a brilliant idea. They had some references of shadow art and they kind of like, mocked it up. But I think obviously what's so interesting is that it's so right for Dracula because of his like highlights his relationship with the night. Yeah. Like obviously if it was something else, it would still be impressive, but the fact that it's Dracula just gives it another level.
And underneath it, there is a there was a box that was like, break in case of vampires glass that had a stake in it, which was again like you didn't need it, but it was a lovely added touch. Nice touch. And
sorry to interrupt. Did you do lots of tests for the shape of the face? Did you have debates about how aggressive he looked? And
there was a few mock-ups that the like production partner did to like make sure obviously that
there was a whole 3D element to the to those mock-ups. Do you remember them? They were so they moved the light into the right place to get the exact length of the stake right, to get the shape of the outline.
Yeah, because we're looking at one here which is looks like a test.
Yeah, and it's a bit different.
Yeah, it's different, which is, because like you said at the beginning, the show Dracula was a different take on it. Everyone does a different take, don't they, on what their Dracula is. And I suppose the brilliant thing about this is, you just sort of own it again. This is like, I watched the show. I thought it was terrible. I hated the TV show. Halfway through, I was going, this is great. And then it went into some fucking time lapse thing.
Yeah.
And I looked at my missus and going, oh my God, they jumped the shark. Turn it off. But it didn't change.
The billboard was great.
But that's that thing, isn't it? It's a great piece of work though. And it just.
This is a really good example of the socialization power of a brilliant billboard, because this one went everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was James Fairfield. It was definitely one of the creatives, like, because there was only, I think there was two locations. So there was one in London and one in Birmingham, maybe.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, James like stood over the other side of the street and filmed like a time-lapse video of it. And then that just like when it was shared online, like went crazy, went viral. It was like trending on Reddit. So I think it's like that is the power of a billboard living beyond.
It was that time lapse of day to night, wasn't it? It was brilliant. When the light came on, it's really good, and I still see it every now and again now. Someone reposting it.
Yeah, it's a fabulous piece of work, and also nice one to sort of come back to and get your, excuse my pun, get your teeth into.
Very good.
But then after that, did that?
I don't know. Did that make you, when you were at BBC? Did it make you change the way you thought about the outdoor special builds? Was that a seminal moment?
Yeah,
it felt like it from a BBC perspective, having. Being a partner, like, oh, Dracula did really well, and all of a sudden there was quite a few other briefs coming in that had outdoor first ideas.
Yeah, and with a kind of special build element to it, something that would make it get talked about and live beyond that location.
I mean,
Perfect Planet is a good example. The reason I was saying that because the Perfect Planet wasn't long after, and it was another great special build that got talked about. And
I mean, one thing I was going to say about both, having worked there, was it was always. Not a struggle, but what's so good about Dracula and Perfect Planet is you're literally saying the name of the show and then you're subverting it, but you're not having to build another idea. I remember, because there's no time for that, because really you just want to put the show up and, say it's...
Because we were talking about stuff with Vigil not long after that.
That's right, yeah.
Apprentice as well.
Yeah.
Where there's outdoor stunt ideas.
Funny enough, both my... routes, thanks Dan, which Helen approved.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember actually showing Helen a load of Vigil stuff, and you were so busy. I remember, so I just digress for a sec. So it was lockdown, and there was cameras in everyone's houses and bedrooms. We were talking one day, and I think 3 children turned up in the room, and I went, "Oh my God, she's got so much on her plate."
Yeah,
and you were trying to do something, and I said, "On Vigil, shall I just show you stuff occasionally?" Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, just show me it when it's really good. And I went, okay, great. And thankfully it was all great. But it was like...
I used to have to barricade myself in the bedroom.
I remember. But it is like...
We got through as well. I was like,
you can't go and not...
The homeschooling. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I've blocked it out.
But on the Planet thing, it is a poster that says BBC at Perfect Planet. And you're going, oh, good job. There you go. That's the show. But then on this, like Dracula, it was subverted. And we're just going to talk about the main poster that sort of got set on fire. So
Yeah.
were you confident this was going to be pulled off all right? Did they come in and say, Helen, we want to put it on fire? Or did that evolve after the initial ripping stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was all kind of sort of at the same time, I guess. I mean, the show was, called A Perfect Planet, David Attenborough. It was all about how, Earth is like 1 in a billion. There were like 5 episodes. The first 4 were, based on like the sun or volcanoes or oceans and how they, make our, country, our planet sort of thrive.
Yeah.
And then the last episode was about humans, and that's where it sort of took a dark turn and how actually
we're ruining
it and we're sort of throwing it off balance. I think it ended on an upbeat note. I'm sure David Attenborough was like, but, we can turn it around. Although, this was like 4 years ago and we probably haven't done anything to turn it around. But so for those first 4 weeks when the show was out and it was all about like the sun and the oceans, then you had this outdoor out there. It was just, like you say, lovely, beautiful image of like a monkey or, with the line A Perfect Planet. And then when the humans episode came out, they were kind of hijacked and defaced, to show that damage that humans are doing to the planet. And this was one that a special build that we had up in Manchester where we sort of literally set it on fire, although not literally.
It was a lighting and smoke technique.
Yeah, because obviously it was for a show that's all about, sort of protecting our planet. So it had to be environmentally friendly and sustainable. So
wasn't because we had Rachel Miles.
Yeah, so this is Rachel, Michael,
episode 72, guys,
and Tim and James, who started Meanwhile with the CDs on it.
And so I remember she saying, or some saying perversely, you had to set it on fire, but it had to be environmentally friendly fire, and it wasn't really fire. It was
smoke, light and smoke technique.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it is the fire brigade did get a phone call about a billboard being on fire.
Yeah, I think we tipped them off to say this was happening. And we, obviously you have to.
I mean, at that point, it's job done, isn't it? Because I remember seeing it. I remember seeing the original concept of, like the rip, which is really a great idea anyway. But then this is obviously taking it. It's fucking cool. I mean, this and Dracula are, they are iconic pieces of work. I remember being in briefings. I remember when it was like, this is long time ago, when Tango first came out and joined BB-8, and everyone just said, "Oh, just give us Tango." They just, the little orange man slapping the head face. That was just what everyone wanted. Mm-hmm. I remember being at the BBC and everyone saying, "Let's give us a Dracula." So let's just give us a Dracula. And you go, "Okay, cool." It's like, and then because they're very easy things to remember, and they're so simple and so iconic.
I think it's just trying to do something like for the first time, right?
Exactly.
You're just trying to do something that you haven't seen before, that hasn't been done before. Again, just do something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah,
sounds easy.
Just give me a first.
Yeah,
and then have the boss say.
I think when you see that stuff, you're like, that's brilliant. And again, like this was, it's for something that you wanted people to talk about and hopefully to make a difference.
Right, we're going to move on from the BBC and we're going to go to BBH. So do you choose places to work because of the 2 B's in front of them?
I know, yeah. Just change one initial, the BBC to BBH.
So you went to BBH.
I think the BBC was the only place my mum sort of like could pronounce. It's too many initials.
I thought that would have really, if that was my mum, God, that'd be so confusing. Don't sort of think about it. But I remember you going, and I actually felt really sad because we just started working together, and I was really enjoying it. But the
BBC was amazing, and they loved. I mean, I was only there for a couple of years, and I definitely, could have stayed there for longer. But then BBH got in touch, and I think it's one of those agencies with such a rich legacy of doing great work, and sort of you have the chat, don't you?
Yeah, you can't turn it down, I suppose. And so we're going to look at Harry and Meghan and a very big Ribena outdoor stunt. How did this happen? Was this the first thing you did outdoors there?
Yeah, so when we first, obviously, we just sort of repitched for Ribena and won it, which is great. But this was like the previous time when we first won it, and we ended up making the work that we had pitched with. And the whole idea was about Ribena being that little pick me up in sort of like during life stumbles, those sort of awkward moments. And I think because Ribena is the drink you've had since you were a kid, and it's quite, reassuring. You might have had a hot Ribena when you were a kid that your mum gave you. So it's something it's almost like that arm around your shoulder that goes, sort of chin up, which was the end line. It's all going to be okay. And we'd had a TV campaign, like a couple of TV ads that are out there. One was a guy trying to parallel park, and then all these cats are sort of looking at him, nature's judgiest animals, and shaking their head and saying, mate. And then there was another one with a woman who like looks in a car window and she's sort of got something stuck in her teeth, and then the window comes down, and then she goes, everywhere she goes, she's sort of checking herself in the reflection, and the window keeps coming down. And and then there was some out of home that we had out, and then this was a stunt that we did because basically the campaign was launching the same weekend as the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
Right.
So that seemed like a coincidence that's too good to pass up.
And the news story around the Platinum Jubilee was...
what are these awkward moments around the Jubilee? Well, there's not anything that much more awkward than someone, a family member not being invited to a family party. And the big story was like Harry and Meghan, because they'd left the royal family. Will they be invited on the balcony? Won't they? Will they? Won't they? And then it turned out they weren't invited on there. So we thought, well, do a service, create our own balcony, hire Britain's #1 Harry and Meghan lookalikes, and have them on the balcony, waving to everyone, drinking Ribena. And the line on it was like, when you've Ribena bit left out.
Yeah. Where excuse me, where is this though I'm looking at?
It's next to
like, next to, is it Tower Bridge? I think it was.
Potter's Field.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
It's really good.
We only had the idea like a few days before. So, the clients were amazing. We had, they were brilliant clients. Bridget Hurst, Charlotte Fluke, and Hannah Norbury. And we took this idea to them. They sort of ran it by their legal. Their legal said, don't do it. They said, I think it'll be fine. And so they, credit to them.
Well, you're going to get a cease and desist from the Queen.
Yeah,
no
I
way.
don't know.
She'd love it.
Yeah, I think they thought, that there was sort of minimal risk. So, which, but some clients wouldn't do it. And then we worked with a production partner, like, we make stuff happen. And they did. They made it happen.
Well done, we make stuff happen.
So, it was like basically a big sort of Jubilee party. Surely
Ribena has been around long enough, and there's another British institution that it's by royal appointment, so you can get away with anything.
Yeah. It's probably some
hot Ribena.
I still like hot Ribena.
Yeah,
man. I do that winter one. It's really good.
Yeah, okay.
Winter spiced Ribena.
A little bit of vodka in there? No.
What's the matter with you?
We weren't going to say that on air.
You're an animal.
The alcoholic. No. Okay, right. So, we're going to move on to some Stranger Things. Good link there, Hugh.
Smooth.
Yeah, I've watched all the shows. I love all the series, but I remember this campaign being picked up. But I'm not such a geek as to know the absolute depth of this stuff. Do you want to? Because it was a fake campaign from the 80s. Is that right?
Yeah. So this like so when I came to BBH from the BBC. Basically, this was a sort of client I brought in. Chris Hooper, who is a brilliant marketer at the BBC, left and went to Netflix. And then when I was at BBH, I sort of got in touch with him and said, it'd be great to work on something together. And he said, there's something, we might have something. And I thought it'd be like a little project, just to test how we work together. And then he said it's for Stranger Things 4, like one of their biggest shows. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And we put everything into it. It was great for the creative department. Like, everyone loves the show, and just, it was like an, all department brief. Dilla and Adam were the CDs, like, they had to sift through so much work. We filled a whole meeting room with all the work up on the walls, and then this was the one that the client picked. It was an idea by a team, Christine and Kev, but they couldn't execute it because they were CDs on Tesco, which was so busy. So another team, Will and Elliot, executed it and poured so much love and craft into it.
Right.
But it's sort of launched. It was basically a series of posters that were sort of put up around the country that were sort of fake, well, sort of businesses from the show, like things that happened in Stranger Things series 4. So you'd have like Hawkins Power and Lights. Obviously, it's set in the town of Hawkins. There was like Visit Lenora Hills, which was a new location. One of the characters in the show moved to somewhere called Lenora Falls. There was a ice skating rink in it called Rinkomania, so there was an ad for that. There was this Surfer Boy Pizza was a place in the new show that one of the characters worked at. So we basically recreated these posters for each of these businesses in that 80s style, and there's just the attention to craft and all like the little details in it. And on first look, they look really innocent and sort of fun and colourful. But then as you look closer, there's some quite ominous things. So like the Surfer Boy Pizza one, we worked with an illustrator who did all these sort of illustrations in the 80s. And then there's like palm trees, but actually when you look at them, they're the Demogorgon.
Oh my God.
And then the roller skating rink one, like it looks really nice. But then if you look at her roller skates, there's like blood on them.
Great.
And then the Lenora Hills, it's like disappear for a while. So some of the headlines, hint to some sort of darker goings on. The Hawkins Power Light, the only thing keeping you from darkness. And then like in the copy, there's some like really lovely written copy, but there's also sort of Easter eggs to where this experience was happening. So basically these are all hints leading you to this like activation. And there was a phone number. Basically, if you phoned the phone number, you got some sort of clues to where the activation was happening. And then the sort of door of like where the activation was, there was a big billboard. And then each day a rift appeared and got bigger and bigger. And then until it was big enough that you could walk through. And then that's when it started. And inside,
experience.
Yeah. And then inside we'd recreated Surfer Boy Pizza, but in the upside down. So given it this really like, scary kind of transformation. And then the craft in making this, so we worked with Blonstein Productions, who were amazing. Like there was this like 17-meter tunnel that you walked through where they'd like sourced like or just the right slime for the walls and like the smells, like this damp smell as you walk through. Then in Surfer Boy Pizza, you kind of had these like zombie-like, people working there that would like, kind of do various things. There was like a notice board which had all like things from the 80s, like a lost cat or stinks from the show, like,
And it was a walk-through experience through the tunnel. Yeah,
and then, there was like a photo experience. There was various things that happened. And then at the end of it, we sort of worked with Yard Sale?
Yard Sale, yeah.
Yeah, and they made this like Demogorgonzola pizza.
Oh,
nice.
So yeah, it was amazing, and just like
the
people. And I think it really spoke to like the fans as well.
Yeah.
There's lots of talk online, people trying to like work out where it was. It attracted like people from like Latvia and Italy and New York
because
like,
they're huge fans of the show.
Yeah. So again, I think it's like when you really know your audience and talk to them. They really got into it and talked about it and had that swell of interest, and then that radiated outwards.
It's amazing. I mean, like, literally, this is why this show is on, because that's the story behind that. It's so interesting. The posters are great. Did you was it the design department or was it the individual art directors? Because they're really beautifully done. Was it like when Andy Bird, we'd go down the corridor and give it to Birdie.
It was a real collaborative. It was real, and it was a real labour of love. Like it was a mixture of like Will and Elliot, the creative team, Dilla and Adam,
right.
And then the designer was Rob Wilson, who was brilliant. So it was a constant sort of
Rob Wilson from
crafting and
King Henry, Adam and Eve chap. Is that right? Because I've worked with Rob recently.
Oh yeah, he's not BBH anymore.
No, he's sort of got side parting and glasses. Very nice man.
Yeah.
Hello, Rob, if you're listening.
Yeah,
I had a pint with him the other day. No, because he was at Neverland when I was there.
They just really got into that, the craft, like the typefaces and fonts and the stock.
No, I could
stock
see.
photography was from the 80s and the textures, and it was amazing.
I like the way he talked about slime, where you've just got the right smell.
Yeah. But even like I think Surfer Boy Pizza in the actual show, it was only in like 2 scenes. It was only on for a few seconds, so we sort of recreated it from that. And there was I remember there was a phone that they'd sort of sourced on eBay, and
Right, we have to speed up.
Sorry.
So we're going to squeeze in.
We've been through a lot of work, and we've got 3 more to get through. Yeah, no, it's good. That's why you're here.
Right, we're going to have to do Girl v Cancer, Burger King, and Tesco. So, Girl v Cancer. I've just written here: sex and cancer, 2 topics you don't often see on billboards up and down the country.
No. No.
Could you briefly tell us about this? Because it's an amazing campaign, and I did wonder, the shots are incredible. It's very, very provocative, rightly so. Could you tell us a bit behind this?
Something I'm really, just really proud of. It was an issue that kind of we'd had, an idea we'd had for a couple of years, but we couldn't sort of find the right partner. And then we got in touch with Girl vs. Cancer, and Lauren Mahon, who's the founder of that. She's an amazing, charismatic woman, and she loved it and was just a real powerhouse. And together we made it happen. But it was all based off of this sort of insight that obviously half of people will get cancer at some point in their life, right. And of women, less than a third will be given information about how treatment will affect their sex life.
Right.
Whereas like men, when they talk to their GP and they experience cancer, like how it affects their sex life is much more talked about.
Right.
For women, they were made to feel more like, well, you should be glad to be alive, and not really given that information, which is kind of crazy. And I think when we first sort of heard about this sort of issue, I think it was we all know about cancer, but we don't think about this other side of it, and sex and cancer. And obviously, yes, you want to get rid of the cancer, and that's really important, but you also want to have a life, and all of those things are so important to having a rich and fulfilling life. And
it's really interesting, because just by that you've just said, that not enough people know that, but then it's quite hard to, how do you put it into like words, and they're words which people are going to remember. And this is the headline says, "Cancer won't be the last thing that fucks me." This is a really powerful line, isn't it?
And this was a line like Adam Newby, who's the CD on it, he kind of like just came out with it, and we were like, that's amazing. That's it. And then Lucy and Grace, who were the creative team, who were brilliant, they sort of crafted this to the nth degree.
Who shot the imagery?
So we sort of collaborated with Academy. So the photographer Katie Burden shot the posters, and then we worked with the director Sophia Ray, who shot the films. And I think authenticity was key throughout this. Like we worked with some like focus groups of women who either were experiencing cancer or had experienced cancer, and we showed them quite a few different campaigns. But when they saw this, they were like, "Yeah, that's it. Like if I saw that poster in the street, I would want my picture taken with it."
Right.
And I think then that really buoyed us. Like we were really talking to those people to like make them feel seen. And
I mean that's a t-shirt, right? That's for someone who's fighting cancer, that it goes on a t-shirt. And
so I think it was important it had that, it was unapologetic, and they ended up getting banned, which was
perfect.
Which was a shame in some ways, because we had to take them down, but then we sort of put them up other places. But it did at least get it talked about, and I think that was the whole point. It was a small charity. We didn't have a big spend, so it needed to start that conversation.
And we're looking now
when an ad gets banned, it all of a sudden the virability of it goes insane online, so people start talking about it more, the news pick it up.
And then we're looking at some more variations of these t-shirts, or
these were like postcards and social posts. So this was we gave the line to various artists like Anthony Burrell and Chris Andrew Small and Kelly Anna and a few other people to like bring that line to life, so it could just live beyond the outdoor and online. It's
great. It's such a great piece of work. We're going to move on, and I don't know how you'd link to women giving birth and the burger. So we haven't got a huge amount of time, but I was just going to say, so as you and our listeners will know, Dan and I are not women, and we are definitely not women who have given birth. So it's hard for us to fully comprehend the feeling childbirth.
But I have been the person next to the woman giving birth,
so have I.
Begging for a takeaway to come in because I hated hospital food.
Is this a thing? Because it has raised so much debate on LinkedIn and yada yada, wherever else, and it clearly is, right?
Yeah, when it came from an insight, it was a survey that Mumsnet did, and they found that the meal that women have after giving birth is one of the most amazing feelings ever.
Right.
And over a third of women who were interviewed, they said they wanted a burger and fries more than anything else.
Is that right? That's amazing.
And these images were real. images.
So how did you get these images? Did you?
We came across one that was just a woman eating a Burger King. We're eating a Whopper after giving birth.
Oh my God.
And then when we were developing the campaign,
They're brilliant. They're brilliant shots because they feel so real, even if they aren't. But I'm sure they are.
Yeah,
they're just.
Yeah, they're all genuine. They're there was no photographer. They were like self-shot.
Oh, so good.
We did make a social film that was beautifully directed by Phoebe Arnstein.
Because I don't know why I was with Dave Masterman, or he's another guest of the show. I can't bloody remember his episode, but I asked him, and he said, Ali, I think his wife is Ali. He says, "Oh yeah, Ali, Domino's Pizza." And then I started asking a few people, and I thought, so this morning I remembered. So my Rach, of course, she just had a couple of pieces of toast.
Yeah,
because she's quite like that. But like,
it's true. I mean, I had with my third kid, I had gestational diabetes, so I couldn't eat any like. I mean, all you want is cake when you're, pregnant. I couldn't. Cake. Yeah, I couldn't eat, any sort of sugary food. So, I mean, basically but things with gestational diabetes, once you give birth, it goes
immediately.
So
wow,
it's just news.
You like bring me some cake.
So I had to test my blood every morning and I think because your baby can grow too big, and if you're giving birth, you definitely
you don't want that,
and it's not good for the baby. But once the baby's out, you're fine. So I remember my husband just getting a carrot cake and eating it like it was a pork pie. I didn't have any knife and fork or anything. I just shoved it in. It was just like, give me cake.
It's brilliant. It's had it did get a big response, didn't it? The campaign.
Yeah, and I think again we weren't expecting that. Just how the internet worked itself into a frenzy. I think what was interesting about that was just the divide. The negative comments were. Did you
think was it a gender divide?
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Pathetic.
All the negative comments were men, but then on the other side, it was the women, especially mothers, just overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah,
and I think it's if you're going to spend 12 hours giving birth and you're exhausted and overwhelmed, then you can eat whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly it. Because that's
not just on the first day either.
Yeah.
No, but that joke aside, that's why I sort of read that line out, because it's it's fundamentally, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And we try to, I'm there with Rach going, "You all right? Do you want another hummus sandwich?" And all this, and it's fuck off, mate. Give me something big.
And again, it's interesting. It's with the God versus Cancer stuff, and it being banned. And that was around the same kind of time as FK Twigs' Calvin Klein ad was getting banned, but the Jeremy
that was ridiculous.
Alan White one wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's all this stuff around women's bodies. And I think this is a similar thing. Society thinks when a woman becomes pregnant that she's perfect and she should, give up her sense of self and put everything she does into the baby.
Yeah.
And it's this pure moment when it's, a woman, because obviously it went crazy online. Some of the comments were great, especially the women coming out in support of it. And one woman said something like, for fuck's sake, it's 1 meal. If you've run a marathon and then squeezed a melon out of your penis, you can eat whatever you want. Or then come and talk to me kind of thing.
Wasn't Nicola Wood? I remember seeing someone forward that, and when I read that, I think I read that on LinkedIn. I went, that's a good line. Right, we've got to move on.
Yeah, but I think it's great. You want to make work that's provocative, and not provocative for the sake of it, but just that is going to get noticed and talked about. And I think, even though they were real images, I think showing them in that rawness was really brave, because you could execute that in the wrong way.
It's real world insight as well. It happens in every hospital
really
up and down the country, hundreds of times a day.
Yeah.
It's great, and it really is a testament to what you're doing at BBH at the moment of just work like that. So we are going to finish on Tesco, which is another fantastic. Another brilliant client, but the way you work with them is brilliant, because I always think it's very hard to do great work on supermarkets. I think worked on quite a few, and once you're on a run and you're clearly on a run, it's great. Talked at the top of the show about another great Christmas one coming out, but we're just looking briefly now at Ramadan, which was a digital out of home execution. So simple. So the daytime, the plates are empty, and in the evening, they're full. So can you give us 2 or 3 lines on this? Because that's all we've probably got time for.
So this is we we wanted to do something for Ramadan, because obviously Tesco, it's Britain's biggest supermarket. You know, they're really inclusive, and they wanted to do something that they'd talk to all their audience and all their customers. And not a lot of brands were doing, you know, things around Ramadan at the time. You know, at the time there was like 4 million British Muslims, but I think there's something like a quarter of British people didn't know that Ramadan was a Muslim celebration.
Or indeed what it is, right?
Yeah.
I talk to friends about it all the time. Oh, it's Ramadan. Oh, what does that even mean? What is that?
Yeah.
Well, people are fasting during the day. There's a
and I think it was something interesting, obviously, for a British supermarket that usually has billboards full of food, to do something to recognise this community where they didn't show any food at all.
Yeah.
So basically, in the daytime, this it was a digital poster, but it just showed empty plates, and then as the sun set, the plates filled up with food. And there was, so I think there were like 4 digital billboards around the country. There's like one in London, Birmingham, Bradford, maybe somewhere else. We used data to kind of find out where were the most like communities with the most Muslims in, so we could like really talk to them. And we worked with the Unmistakable, who were an inclusivity consultancy, to make sure, and they were actually the ones, like originally we would want to do something that talked to the whole of the nation about Ramadan, but they said no, like make it very targeted to the Muslim community. And I think that was a really interesting like twist, because it made it really focused and it made us be really like authentic, and we worked with them to make sure, you know, we were as relatable and real as possible. And we also worked with Tesco. They have a Muslim ethnicity network. We worked with a food consultant who, you know, did all the food, Dina Maki, who was a practicing Muslim, also the photographer Khalil Musa, he was a Muslim, and obviously there's lots of different Muslim experiences, so it was really important to talk to lots of different people. And then just the kind of all the craft that went into it, like the colour of the plates, even like would the people, like those hands holding the plates, like would they wear nail varnish or not? So yeah, all of that stuff was
It's funny because all of that effort you put into it, and it just looks so effortless and simple. You know, like you go, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know, night goes to day, day goes to night, and I think that's another testimony to, you know, the great work, how energy it goes into it, and then the greatness is just to make it so simple. And
then where the posters were as well, and they were just timed exactly to the sun setting, and that changed throughout the month, because obviously when the sunset moves
7
by
minutes
a few
or
minutes.
something, yeah.
I mean, it's one of the best examples of, well, again,
dynamic copy, as we call it in Out of Home.
Yeah.
The idea of something being timed for relevancy. So the sunset, obviously, is the most.
Because it's like nothing changed, you know. Together this Ramadan, it's the same headline. It's like, it reminds me, there's only one I don't remember, it was a Guinness, where the Guinness the pint comes it filled up, I think, during St. Patrick's Day or something, but just one thing
we did one for Oreo where there was the eclipse.
That's
the
right,
Oreo eclipse in Leicester.
In digital Out of Home, it just has to be that simple. But yeah, that is really so much detail there. Thanks. So we're going to finish on Tesco again.
And this is very recent.
The latest campaign called Icons, where the letters TESCO have been taken out and replaced with food types, which start with the letters like tomato, eclair, spring onions, coconut, and then that is an oyster mushroom.
Very good.
Someone online went, oh, it's a bit of a push, the oyster mushroom. But I think it was put there to provoke, right?
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic campaign.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, this was actually it was a proactive idea from the creative team, Luke and Lawrence and Felipe's the CD and deputy CD at BBH, and it was real labour of love for them. And it was all about showing like Tesco's food quality, but also I guess like Tesco's an iconic brand, and you know, a brand that can play with its logo in that way, kind of to get that iconic status. It sort of fit.
We've tried to coin this phrase for our show and for our sort of talks. Even less is even more. So we did that. I think first when we saw the British Airways Windows campaign, and I think that applies absolutely to this, because you don't need to see the logo, and it's so. But what's really clever about it is you know it's Tesco, but then it pulls you in. And Dan and Neil have this great expression. What is it, Dan, about the best outdoor attention is important.
Involvement is critical.
Involvement is critical. So you get involved because you start. Because I started going, oh yeah, what's the scene? And it's involved in a really lovely way.
Yeah,
not having to work hard.
Yeah, there's a value exchange. Yeah, like I can start to decode it, and that's fine. And it's a relatively simple decoding, except for that one person online who doesn't know what to do.
But it's so confident and so playful, but absolutely shows food. It smells like. It's just, for me, it's one of the best campaigns of the year.
Yeah, I think it's going to. Well, we'll have our end of season awards in December.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is going to feature.
Yeah, I think it's really simple, but then I think actually doing simple is quite hard, and the craft that went into it, and making sure the croissant has the right sort of curve, and you've got the right sort of sprinkling of spring onions on things. And
were the client okay? Were they hard to convince? Were they go, no, let's do it, or was it?
No, I think they're all about food and celebrating food, and I think this does it so well. And like you say, it has a real confidence, and I think for a brand to be able to do that, I think is really powerful. And like you say, it was just a fun puzzle for people to work out, and there is that bit of reward. We're kind of talking about the Sudafed ad at the beginning. It just sort of is telling you something, whereas that's like drawing you in.
So we have to end on your favourite billboard. I haven't got it in the deck.
That's all right. I can remember.
But we will put it online when we get it. Yeah, sorry, don't worry.
God, it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Favourite billboard.
Not choosing your favourite child.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's been so many. I did think about sort of putting an economist one in, but then I thought you've got.
You're
loads
more than
of
welcome.
No,
You're more than welcome.
But no, I chose Apple's shot on iPhone.
Right.
I think when that came out, it just felt really different. I think rather than showing the product, it's showing what the product can do, and it was beautiful. It's almost like a gallery.
The world gallery,
like turning the world into a gallery, and just the variety and how big it was. And also I think like some of when you see the in situ shots, it's like in quite an industrial estate, and then you've just got this beautiful image. It just really makes you love the brand and the product, makes you want one, makes you want to take those photos. I think it also got people, it was interactive. I think if you can have an interactive element, like people could send in their own photos and that might get turned into a billboard. So I thought that was a bit of a...
I'm really pleased you said that.
Good choice.
I love that one. It was Grand Prix, wasn't it? It was, the world is a sort of...
It's an ongoing campaign as well. It's an icon. It's definitely nice.
Do you have any tips for anyone, old, young, in between, new to the industry, old to the industry, of what makes, or do you have anything that you have mantras that you believe in for outdoor? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've kind of touched on stuff, I guess, and I'm sure this is the number one thing most people say, but like simplicity is key. I think, some of the advice, I think the best advice I ever got was, when I was at Watford. I think at Watford you often start with posters, because if you can distill an idea into that, then you can sort of live anywhere. Is it one thing I sort of talked about is when we didn't really talk about the barn too much.
No.
And Tony, have we got time?
Yes.
We have, of course we have.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
I guess when you sort of said, is there any advice? And I was thinking about it. It reminded me of Tony and the advice he gave after the first year of the barn at their graduation.
Right.
And that was some of the best advice, I'd ever heard.
Yeah.
It was also, so like people who went to Watford probably heard it before, but I think that's stuff that you should never forget and has become, things that you always refer back to in your career. So I'll read these 5 bits of advice that he gave.
Okay. Yep. Very good. Thank you.
So the first one, he says, no one is better than you. People can be more eloquent, articulate an argument, have more experience, know their way around an agency a little bit more, the logistics, the politics, etc., but they're no better than you. So bear that in mind. And then number 2 was don't ever chase the money, something we sort of talked about earlier.
Yes.
He said he would get calls every day from ex-students saying, we're really unhappy here, but they're stuck by the golden handcuffs. Their salary is such that they can't get another job.
Yeah.
So people price themselves out of a market. If you chase the opportunities, whatever money you require will come your way. So don't chase the money. It won't work. You'll have miserable careers. Chase the opportunity.
Yeah.
3, support each other. So many Watford reunions have happened throughout the years. So people should carry on that, be there for each other. You'll need support throughout this business. Whenever someone needs help, be there for them. If there's a job opening in the agency you're at, then call them up and let them know. Stay in touch, meet regularly, and help each other through this crazy business. Number 4, you need to develop your creative pursuits outside of advertising. As John Hegarty said, creativity is not an occupation, it's a preoccupation, which is so true. So always be creative in other areas. And 5, lastly, you're in this industry because it's fun. The moment it stops being fun, you need to do one of 2 things. You either change your attitude or change your job. If you stay in this business and have fun, then it won't feel like work. So do have fun.
Oh my God, I feel like a little tear in my eye.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
What an amazing man.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's great for BBH to be continuing the legacy that he's left behind us. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the proudest things I've ever done. Like when I started at BBH, the placement scheme had been stopped during COVID, and when I joined, it was just after COVID, and they were going to start it up again. And I said, well, rather than just doing another placement scheme, why don't we, do the barn and a creative incubator scheme where we open it up to allow different people to come into advertising. And I spoke to Tony and said, I'd like to do this thing, and I can only think of one person to do it, and that's you. And he said, well, I'm thinking of closing Watford because, I'm not getting enough people through the doors. And, he was like, yeah, I'd love to. And it was amazing, working with him every day. It was quite strange going from sort of a student to, to then, and I think you just revert to that student from years ago. But yeah, it was an amazing time.
Yeah, I remember he always put his hand on your shoulder and you say, "You having fun?"
Yeah.
It's like, but then, you've epitomised that today on the show. The work you've shared there's been so much fun in there. It's brilliant. So maybe we should dedicate this episode to Tony.
Yeah.
And Helen.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming in.
No, thanks for having me.
We haven't eaten those cakes you brought, so we'll have share those out afterwards.
Shout out to Buns from Home.
Wow, that was quite an ending. I didn't see that coming. The Tony Cullingham thing. That was
That got you, didn't it?
Yeah.
I can see you welling up.
The one in the middle. Oh gosh. So thank you, Helen. Wow, what an amazing episode.
As I said, it's so great for his legacy. He's touched so many people in the industry, and the people that we've interviewed on our podcast. At least,
it's still there. The barn.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just everything. I mean, the stories that Helen gave about so many things there. It's why we do this. I'm genuinely enthralled to the Stranger Things and the slime on the wall. But
that's brilliant.
Tony, this one's for you and for everyone who went to Watford and everyone's in the industry. You just listen to those tips. They're just they're sort of mind blowing. They're things that we need to remind ourselves of why we do this. Yeah, because we do get stuck in the reeds sometimes, and if it's not fun, make it fun or do something else. Yeah. Exactly. Right. I think that's a good one to end on. Yeah. Thank you as well. Fun. Yeah. Thank you for being fun, Dan.
Thank you for making it fun.
Thanks to our sponsors, Talon. Thank you to Grand Visual.
And to our hosts here, Soho Radio. They are so good.
Rachel and Adrian.
Adrian and Rachel in particular.
Oh, no. Thank you, Helen, for the cinnamon buns we didn't eat.
Buns from home. Just around the corner
buns
here
for
in
home.
Soho.
Little shout out for you guys. All right. See you next week.
Thanks for the flapjacks.
Bye.